Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. Personally, firing on all cylinders this morning after West Ham's historic 3-1 drubbing of Arsenal last night, although we've got Liverpool in the next round of the Cup, so probably going to end there. How is the weather with you today? It's been bucking it down here for about 12 hours. No signs of it stopping either. And as someone that can't assemble IKEA furniture, not much chance of me knocking up an ark in the next 24 hours, so pray for me if you would be so kind. Very interesting afternoon yesterday. As you may have seen in the press, Mace, or the team at Mace rather, have just published a new report on the future of sustainable construction. It details the need for circularity materials banks, materials passports, and an accreditation scheme to encourage the reuse of not just of materials, but the entire sections of former buildings and structures. Yesterday afternoon, I was lucky enough to sit down with one of Mace's divisional managing directors, Jed Simmons, to talk about the report and his view on the role of demolition as part of the sustainable future. We'll be releasing that film tomorrow. Although if you are one of our paid subscribers over on our Demolition Insider website, you'll be getting to see that in a couple of hours' time. That's a whole other story. Now, without further ado, just one other thing that I will throw into the mix here. Thinking about this first thing this morning, and I'm trying to remember exactly the way I worded it, but when you think back to 2018, you might remember that Carillion went pop. When it did so with liabilities of almost £7 billion. The collapse led to around 3,000 redundancies within Carillion alone, plus a whole lot more outside, and had a financial impact on some 30,000 suppliers, some of whom were themselves pushed into insolvency. Not only did that result in a parliamentary inquiry, it also prompted legislation proposals to reform industry payment systems and good payment procedures. Here we are, less than 5 years later, and squib. Yeah. So just mull that over. But as I said, it is that time of the day. So what do I do round about now? I roll the intro, don't I? Post the question of the day and get the show on the road. Let me do that. It is Thursday, the 2nd of November. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, behind the scenes of a very big bang, how a modified JCB Hydradig is right on track. Whatever the application, Komatsu has a wheel loader to match, and we're calling by Rotterdam. Rotterdam for a spot of Dutch demolition. Plus, Caterpillar somehow manages to make hydraulic hoses sexy. But first, we're going to peer back through the mist of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. On this day in 1886, a German patent was granted for a vehicle with a gas engine operation. It was granted to a fella, you may have heard of him, called Carl Benz. Yes, that Benz, the Mercedes-Benz, that's the fella. In 1898, cheerleading began in the US when a guy called Johnny Campbell led the crowd cheering the football team of the University of Minnesota. Funnily enough, that first ever cheerleading team was all male and therefore quite dull. In 1903, the Daily Mirror newspaper was published for the first time. At 3 p.m. on this very day in 1936, the BBC began the world's first regular TV broadcast. Who would have thought it would have ended up with this nonsense? In 1983, this makes me feel very old indeed. In 1983, 40 years ago, Michael Jackson released the song Thriller. 40 years ago. And in 1989, the final episode of Blackadder Goes Forth was broadcast on BBC TV. If you remember, it's the one where they go over the top in the trenches. funny as hell and as poignant as anything. One of the absolute pinnacles of the UK TV scene, I would say. And in 1993, Rudy Giuliani was elected mayor of New York. Whatever happened to him, I wonder? This day in 2020, Baby Shark became the most watched video on YouTube, clocking up an astonishing 7 billion views. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me quickly remind you of the question of the day. And I'm saying that not even sure I've posted the question of the day. So let me do that now. And then I'm going to immediately remind you exactly what it is. It looks like this. Yeah, our question of the day today comes from our friend Gary Muirhead, and it's a belter, I think. Have you ever had a nickname? And if so, what was it? Now, I had one back when I was playing football on a regular basis. I played in midfield, so I saw a lot of the ball. I was, the midfield maestro. At least that's what I told people. Whenever I found myself surrounded by opposing players, I'd kind of spin around with the ball at my feet until I'd shaken them all off. I did it a lot in one particular match. I think it was a cup match, if memory serves me right. And my manager at halftime told me I looked like a whirling dervish. A whirling dervish. And it stuck for as long as I played for that team. I was dervish. It took some explaining to the parents when they came to watch. But what about you? Aside from the names that I've bestowed upon you, Mr. Hats, the Sprocket Man, Smooth Operator Gary Muirhead, and all those, have you ever had a nickname? And if so, what was it? Let us know in the chat, and we'll come back to that at the very end of the show. Over the course of more than 600 shows, we've brought you a lot of explosive demolition films, and a good many of them have come from the fine folks at Controlled Demolition Inc. or CDI. All those films have been great, but we really get to see behind the scenes to witness what actually goes into making a successful and spectacular blast. Well, we're about to put that right. It's on my computer because it's quite a big file, so bear with me for 2 ticks while I dredge it out of the archives. It is... this one.
machine and tell me when you're in the red. I'm in the red, Tom. Okay, here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
To anyone that believes the Twin Towers were brought down by controlled explosion, that is what goes into the preparation for such an event. I think the occupants of the World Trade Center might have spotted explosives being placed into the columns and miles of deck cord being used to link them all together. Going to throw over to the chat. Jim Turner, love the safe door. Yeah, I bet that was a fair old wait. No, don't want that one yet. Let's have a look. Now, I'm going to say this one very quickly. Good morning, Jamie O'Donnell, also known as Bubbles. Weird how these things roll together, isn't it? Today, 40th anniversary of the release of Michael Jackson's Thriller. What was the name of Michael Jackson's pet chimp? Bubbles. You can't make this stuff up. Andy Darvell says, explosive demolition is something I'd love to get into. Such a meticulous and specialized job these guys do. Awesome work to be part of. Yeah, it must be fantastic. I would imagine nerve-wracking at the time that the plunger's pushed, and you kind of keep your fingers crossed that it all goes according to plan. But yeah, to actually stand back and watch a job like that, and you were part of it, not bad at all. Ken Hatcher, that should be. They don't mess about. They certainly do not. By Christ, that's not exactly how the job works. Yeah, I mean, CDI they are the biggest explosive demolition company in the world. They are doing these things on way more regular basis than just about anybody, I think, with the possible exception of a company over in Turkey, but that's post-earthquake and stuff. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Amazing how you hear the cracks for a few seconds before any movement. Amazing how it's done. Yes, you're absolutely right. All three in one go, or wallop. Yeah, I think that is the word that they use, wallop. Ken Hatcher wants me to post a link to that clip. Ken, as soon as I'm playing another video, I'll dig that out for you, and I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants it. If you need it sent another way, I can do that as well. And that's how it's done. Looks spectacular. I guess the first smaller explosions are to weaken the structure inside before the big drop. Yeah, absolutely right. Morning, Mr. Turner and Mr. Darvell. Lots of people say good morning to each other, including morning hats. Now, we've got plenty more to get through. So let me go back to here, and I'm going to hit this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
The JCB Hydradig, you remember that? It's the machine that made the humble rubber duck somehow sexy and desirable. It was the machine that also spawned the Pothole Pro. Well, now it looks like the machine is about to take to the tracks as well. have to say, I'm looking forward to seeing that when it finally comes to fruition. Going back over to the chat, I've just posted the link to that CDI blast, and Gary Muirhead has just asked, excuse me, does anyone know if Red Adair is still alive? He was some man with explosives, died in 2004, according to Wikipedia. 2004. Anybody too young to remember Red Adair? It's hard to explain what Red Adair did without sounding like a complete lunatic. So Red Adair specialised in putting out oil fires, raging oil fires that could burn for years and years and years. And how did he put them out? He blew them up. Ultimately, in fighting fire with fire, but that's what he did. Yeah, he devised a system of blowing up oil fires. Wonder what made him think of that. Now, what is Andy Dalville saying here? Let's have a look. I operated a tower crane on rails once, never again. The bottom moved about half a second before the top, which whipped past the bottom. Scary shit. I would imagine it is. That I realise it's only fractional, but I've been up a few tower cranes, and that slight, it's enough to be disconcerting. It really is. And I've also stood when we've been on top-down demolition, and you've got a tower crane that's actually lowering the machines onto the roof of a building, and you can see it just ever so slightly moving in the wind. Yeah, not a good place to be. Now, where were we? You might recall on yesterday's show, our friend Gary Muirhead expressed his undying love for the Komatsu wheel loader. And I thought, well, we haven't featured any of those in quite some time. So partly because they've been absent from the Breakfast show, and partly because Gary kind of asked for it, here is some Komatsu loaders doing their thing. Can certainly understand why Gary likes them, can't you? Although I've just remembered exactly what he said. Loves Komatsu wheel loaders, but he prefers Cat. Each to their own, I guess. Somebody's just popped up in the chat. There he is, Gary himself. Komatsu said, do make a damn fine wheel loader. They do indeed. Here we go, off on a tangent. Red Adair is the daddy of the firefighters, as Fred Dibner is the daddy of demolition. Red's technique worked by eliminating one of the three in the triangle of fire. He basically burnt the oxygen away. Clever stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And you may actually remember we had a guy on this show, must be 2 years ago now, who has devised a system of blowing the fire out, much the way that you would blow out the candles on a birthday cake, but he uses jet engines on wheels. So you go up to an oil fire, you back the thing up, you start the engines, poof, blows it out. And he's also devised a system of turning that into a dust suppression system for things like major explosions or implosions like we saw earlier on. All clever stuff. Let's have a look. My lad told me he's been put in for his loading shovel ticket in a couple of weeks. Not bad at 16. Not bad at all. No, absolutely. Give him our best regards and good luck with the new venture. Now, yes, have we had the fuel theft thing? I don't think we have. Let's play it.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Okay, people, fasten your seatbelts because we're off to Rotterdam to get up close and personal with some spectacular Dutch demolition. It's a cracking little film. Some very cool drone work as well. Do wish people that were operating drones did that a bit more often. Just a gentle drift. None of this twitchy nonsense that you get. Just a personal thing.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
Hydraulic hoses. Let's talk about hydraulic hoses. Vital yet vulnerable. They might power the sector and carry the very lifeblood of the industry, but they're just not glamorous or sexy, are they? And if hydraulic hoses are dull, then the labels on them are downright boring. At least they are until Caterpillar films them.
One label, two solutions. A complete service solution when combined with a CAT CVA. CAT Smart Hose labels make proactive hose management easy and simplify replacement parts ordering. A QR code on each label includes unique tracking identification for the hose assembly that helps you track every hose assembly on every machine. Use the CAT Inspect app to match Smart Hose label tracking IDs with equipment serial numbers. It's simple. Just label the hose assembly and scan the QR code with your mobile device at every inspection. From there, you can record observations, evaluate conditions, and proactively order replacements for damaged assemblies. If you need to replace multiple hose assemblies while rebuilding entire machines or subsystems, you can now upload all the information instead of scanning each hose assembly. Plus, you can get customized dealer recommendations with your hose and couplings CVA. As sufficient field data is gathered, this will enable the CAT dealer to provide life cycle reports and hose assembly life trends based on installation date, long-term predictive analytics, and recommendations on when to replace hose assemblies before they fail. Tracking hose assembly life cycles under real working conditions will enable you to increase machine uptime and reduce operating costs, avoid environmental impacts, and optimize hose replacement recommendations based on actual field data. And when it's time to replace a hose assembly, the Scan to Buy QR code feature makes ordering a new hose assembly from parts.cat.com hassle-free. One label, two solutions. Ask your CAT dealer about CAT Smart Hose labels today and enhance your experience with a CAT CVA for hose and couplings.
Pretty good, right? Who knew hydraulic hose labels could look that good? A couple of questions in the chat, or not questions, a couple of statements and then a question, I think. CAT makes the best hose, says Ken Hatcher. Dan Cullen says, wow, that's a great idea. William Forrest, do we think the CAT app shows you the spec, length and fittings for the hose so you can get something made quickly and locally? I assume it's CAT parts only, but seems like a fairly novel idea. I don't suppose that's the sort of thing that they were they're going to allow you to take that app into your local Pertec branch and say, knock us up one of those. I don't think that's the idea at all, but you never know. Is that only for cat machines, or will it suit other brands? As far as I can tell, it seems to be part of their CVA thing that they do. What is it? Customer agreements. So I don't know if it's for other machines, although you would have to think if they have any sense, they would actually widen it. Let's have a look. Fantastic idea, says Andy Darville, but that's fine putting all that info onto a hose until it's done 17,000 hours, covered in grease and crap and rubbed away. But a brilliant idea. 17,000 hours on a hose. That's going some. Do cats still use hoses that require a cat press to manufacture them? They certainly did up until fairly recently, I think. Let's have a look. Toyota invented the QR code. Did they really? Did they really? And you know, the funny thing is, I originally saw QR codes, the same as you guys did, maybe 10, 15 years ago. I remember thinking, what is the point of that? And yet there are things like... on my banking app, I occasionally treat myself to some premium bonds. And to get premium bonds, I go onto the NS&I website, scan a QR code, it fires up my bank account, press the button, and it shifts the money over. That is proper use of QR code, but I also think that is as well. And one other application of QR codes that I think is really, really sensible, because we now have site holdings that are sort of 7-8 feet tall, so people can't see in, which I actually think is an abomination, but that's a whole other story. QR codes on major sites so that people can come up, scan it, and see what the project is all about. I would much rather they do like you see on some of these sites, a panel cut out so people can look through, or like a window in it so people can have a look through. I would prefer that. But if you are hiding your demolition or construction work away, a QR code that tells people exactly what it's all about, fantastic. Great for community engagement, I would imagine. William Forrest says, don't think Caterpillar are going to be giving away the crown jewels. Quite agree. Muchas gracias, says our friend over on YouTube. Not sure what he's saying thank you for, but you're more than welcome, sir. Question of the day. No, we'll come back to that. Dan Cullen is back munching now, eating concrete. Yeah, you love it. Not what I call a hearty breakfast, but hey, each to their own. I think COVID has forced a lot of people, older generation mainly, to actually understand and learn how to use QR codes. One positive, I guess. Yeah, and I also think the same with things like online shopping. I mean, both my parents are no longer with us, but during COVID, I taught them how to use online shopping. And when COVID blew over, they never went back, because why would you? Why would you traipse to particularly at the moment, why would you traipse to your local supermarket in the pissing rain when you can just aim a QR code at your phone? Didn't Pertec put a label on their replacement hoses at one time with part numbers so you could ring through and get the same hose? They did. But I think these things are evolutionary, and I do think the Caterpillar one right there is fantastic. I'm going to come back to that. I see Finning bought out Hydraquip. Yes, they did indeed. Funnily enough, I have no expertise. It's just the way these things worked out. I actually did the PR for Pertec for about 7-8 years. Left Pertec and ended up doing the PR for Hydraquip for about a year. Don't have anything to do with either of them anymore, which is slightly sad. I quite enjoyed working with Pertec, but that's a whole other story. That pretty much wraps up the whole main part of today's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping Gazelle over into the chat to see what you're all saying today, find out what your various nicknames are, and talk about Red Adair. Weirdly, didn't expect that this morning. If you can't stick around, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around. We'll be right back after this final word from our key show sponsor. I'm going to throw this one up purely because he's on his way out the door. Have a fabulous day, guys, and stay safe. A wet and horrible day. Yeah, it's blowing a hoolie, as my mum would have said, out there at the moment, and the rain is coming in sideways, which is always fun. First off the mark this morning was our friend Jim Turner. Morning, Jim. How is the weather up in the Nottinghamshire area. I can never remember exactly where you are, but I know you're roughly around there. Hope it's not blowing too hard. There's Dan Cullen, who's just left us, but that was him arriving. Oi, oi, says Andy Delville. Morning, Andy. Good of you to join us. Our Quizmaster in person. Good morning, Gary Muirhead. And good morning, Mark. Good morning, everybody. It is a good morning. My son Fred and I sat there last night trying to predict all the various Carabao Cup scores, and he said West Ham are going to beat Arsenal, and I laughed. I mocked him to his face. A couple of hours later, West Ham won 3-1. Not only did they defeat Arsenal, who are frankly a better team than West Ham, but they managed to get one over on their former captain, Declan Rice, who left us to join Arsenal just a few months ago. Particularly satisfying that was. William Forrest is here as well. I'm going to be speaking to William Forrest on Monday. We are doing an interview together to talk about all things attachments. I'm going to be asking the questions because I know diddly about attachments. He's going to be providing the answer because he knows pretty much all there is to know about attachments. So look out for that one. Hopefully by the middle of next week, we'll be playing that for you. Dan Cullen says, what a damn horrible day. It really is. It's absolutely awful out there. My wife spoke to my sister earlier. My sister lives down in Worthing, or just up the road from Worthing, and it is properly blowing down there. Mark Whiting's here as well. Hope you've got your hat nailed down today, Mark. It is blowing out there. Chris Ford, good morning, each and every one of you. Yes, I referred to you, and I don't know where it came from, but I've a funny feeling it might stick. I referred to you all this morning as the Breakfast Show cohort. Has quite a cool feel to that. As we progress, it started as the Breakfast Show cohort. I think I will probably reduce it to the BFS cohort, and then after that, you may just be known as the cohort. You should feel very, very cool about that. You're part of the cool gang, not cool and the gang, cool gang. Good morning. Ken Hatcher has got all the weather, but where he is by the looks of things. So yes, Thriller coming out 40 years ago today. Now, I don't know, obviously we have whippersnappers like our friend Andy Dalvell in our midst, who was a babe in arms, I would guess, or possibly not even born when Michael Jackson actually released Thriller. I think you need, if you are of the younger generation, I think I need to give you a bit of background on what a cultural phenomenon that was. So if you cast your mind back, the video, which was, I'm trying to remember who it was, John Landis, the director of American Werewolf in London, was brought in to do the video. The video was, I think they reported that the video cost $1 million, which was unheard of back in 1983. It was an epic, it was about 7 minutes long. And it was such a big deal that I'm fairly sure it was Channel 4. Channel 4 basically set aside a 10-minute slot at midnight on the very time that it came out to premiere the Thriller video. So me and a bunch of my mates, male and female, had all gone down the pub because it was 1983 and that's virtually where I lived. And then when the pub kicked out, we all went back to my mate Bruce's house. And we put the TV on and we sat there with bated breath waiting for Michael Jackson to come on and amaze us all. And he did. He absolutely did. But while I was... I remember this so vividly. I was sat next to one of my old school friends, Debbie Adams, if you're watching. Debbie. Miss you, mate. Debbie sat beside me. And she was to one side and my mate Bruce, sadly no longer with us, was sat to the other. So the thing starts, and I'm sure you've all seen the video where Michael Jackson turns into a weird werewolfy cat thing. The moment that happened, Debbie sort of nudged me in the ribs and pointed at Bruce, and my mate Bruce was sat there watching the whole thing through his fingers. Absolutely terrified he was. And bearing in mind, he was a 6'1" hairy-ass builder, but he was terrified of Michael Jackson's Thriller video 40 years ago today. Yeah, where have those years gone? Question of the day. Dan Collins says, question of the day, which is, have you ever had a nickname? And if so, what was it? His regular nickname was Crazy. If it is impossible to do, well, I never say never. It's a fine attitude to life, that. Morning, everyone, says Glenn Johnston. Morning, Glenn. Jim Turner spotted a very nice safe door on that CDI explosive demolition. Question of the day. Andy Darvell says, most people call me Darv. I think I called you the Darv once. Not that I know any other Darvs, but yeah. The first fire station I worked from, they called me Sex Pest. God knows why. Are you sure you want to be revealing that on a public broadcast? Sex Pest. Okay. And apparently Jamie O'Donnell was in the chat. I haven't actually seen him saying anything, but he is known as Bubbles. Andy Darvell, Explosive Demolition, something I'd love to get into. Such a meticulous and specialised job these guys do. Awesome work to be part of. And I have to say, you could pretty near corner the market if you were to get involved, Andy, because there's nobody else doing it. Obviously, I've mentioned this on a number of occasions before. Lots and lots of explosive demolition people in the UK in the past, but one by one, they're all retiring. The only one I think that we've got now active is William Sinclair up at SafeDem. And you look at somebody like Dick Green. Dick Green has literally travelled the world offering his explosive engineering tech expertise. You could be made for life if you could get yourself into that. Question of the day, Gary Muirhead. This one did tickle me. One time I remember I hurt my foot on site and was hopping about for a bit, and the lads on site called me the Sniper's Nightmare. If you look on, it's probably on YouTube, but I've seen it on Instagram. There's an Australian podcast or radio show where they get people to call in with nicknames for their colleagues. And I've actually heard the opposite of that one. There was one guy who apparently had a really big head, and he was known as the Sniper's Dream. Yeah. Ken Hatcher says, CDI, don't mess about. They really do not mess about. Lots and lots of praise for all of the CDI work. Just rattling through here. Yeah, thought this one was an interesting one. The fact that somebody else has taken that, Giesmar, I think they were called, has taken that. I'm assuming they're a German company with a name like that. They've taken the Hydradig and made it railable. Kind of surprised that JCB haven't thought of that. But again, I've said this in the past. This is not. I'm not accusing JCB of lacking in anything, but the major manufacturers are very, very good at producing hundreds of thousands of the same product, producing one-offs. Not so much. Although you have to say the Pothole Pro, they won't be producing those in huge numbers. But yeah, Gary Muirhead asked, "Is Red Adair still alive?" He is not. Died in 2004. Although, what did I see? He was born in 1915 and he died in 2004. I can't do the maths off the top of my head, but he lived to a ripe old age, which, bearing in mind what it was he did for a living, i.e. exploding oil fires, he did okay, didn't he? Chris Ford, back to our question of the day. I've had plenty over the years. The biscuit barrel was one, as I always made a beeline for the biscuits at home. Coffee time rather. Half load, because I returned back to the field half load as the load had stuck. Then one night I ended up in a ditch in the early hours and became half lad in the ditch. Also, when we were farming, me and the lads were known as little fodder, big fodder and old fodder. Love it. Andy Darvell, I operated a tower crane on rails once. Never again. Bottom moved about half a second before the top, which whipped past the bottom. Yeah, I have no issue with heights. I have no issue with heights whatsoever. But when I'm at height, I kind of like it to be rock solid. I don't think that's a great deal to ask. Like a building, that would be good. Great tune on the Giesmar video, I think that was. Komatsu do make a damn fine wheel loader. Obviously, I know Gary Muirhead has professed his love for all things Komatsu wheel loader. But so has half the industry. Very popular wheel loader as well. This is great news. 16 years old and being put on for his loading shovel ticket. That's fantastic news. Fantastic news. Just what we need in the industry. Yep, seen the jet engines on fire. It's bloody brilliant. Yeah. Funnily enough, I talk about a weird sideline. I'm trying to remember. I think the guy's name was Steve Wolf that we had on here, and he is, he's proposing this jet engine thing for fighting fires, but also for dust suppression. But he is a former Hollywood stunt coordinator, and he is being called as an expert witness in the potential prosecution of Alec Baldwin after that supposedly unloaded gun went off and shot one of the crew. Yeah, a weird old turn of events. Cat makes the best hose. Do they? Do they really? I'm asking. I don't know. Despite working for Pertec and Hydradig, never really had much to do with hoses. I've made a few just because I was there, but don't know that much about them. Wow, that's a great idea. Yeah, what I didn't see with that was that a standalone app, or is that an existing app that's had a bit of a bolt on? Because that's one of the things that does concern me slightly, is you have apps for machine selection and matching. You have apps for machine tracking. You have an app for your daily checks. Ultimately, you need one app, but with lots of branches off that app, I would guess. Don't know the answer to that. If anybody has the Cat app, I'd love to hear from you. Do we think the Cat app shows you the spec, length, and fittings for the hose so you can get something made quickly and locally? Bet it doesn't. Is that only for Cat machines? You would have to think they would have the good sense to, while they're there. I mean, that's part of the whole taking over the world, isn't it? You go cross-platform, and while you're on a Komatsu machine or a Liebherr machine or a Volvo machine, no great hardship to snap the details and get them on the system. Certainly a lot of these telematic systems, LiveLink and Comtrax and people like that, they are all cross-platform as well. I'd be very surprised if the hydraulic hose system wasn't the same. Fantastic idea, but that's fine. Putting all that info on a hose until it's done 17,000 hours, covered in grease and crap and rubbed away. A good point, well made. Let's have a look. There's our friend over on YouTube saying thank you. I don't know what for. Jim Turner, going back to our question of the day, talking about nicknames. I've had quite a few over the years. When I was a young fella, I was a good bit bigger than most kids, so I ended up being called Beef. I'll come back to that. Everyone else seemed to catch me up in size by the time I left school. Then in my teens, my name was Jim the Bastard. Since then, I've mellowed a bit. Now it's just Jim or Jimbo. I've always liked nicknames with the in the middle, like Jack the Hat and Billy the Fish and stuff. Beef. I have 4 children, 2 of whom are twins. My wife's best friend has 4 children, all female. 2 of hers are twins, and one of her girls is called Beth. That's her name, Beth. My kids nicknamed her Beef when she was about 4 years old, and to this very day, she's 30 now, she is still Beef. Back munching now. That is Dan Cullen saying his fond farewells. I think COVID forced a lot of people, older generation mainly, to understand and learn how to use QR codes. One positive, I guess. Yeah, could have done without the death that associated it, but yeah. I did not Pertec put a label on their replacement hoses at one time? Yes, they did. I don't know whether, I've been out of Pertec for a good few years now. Whether there is any kind of follow-up there with an app, I don't know. Jim the Bastard sounds like a pirate or a Viking name. Jim the Bastard. I think we may have to change your name, Jim. Finning bought Hydradig. Yeah, I thought that was quite a big deal, actually. And bearing in mind they do a lot of things like oil analysis and that kind of thing. That's kind of the whole circle of, we'll check your oil, we'll check your hoses, and while we're about it, we'll mend your hoses and replace your hoses because we have the wherewithal. Makes perfect sense to me. Let's have a look. There are some places where I go, certain folk will say the Vikings are here when I walk in. Superb. Sorry, mate, but you know my nickname. It's like putting my foot in it. Yes, Graham, size 17 feet, Williams, footy. Obvious, isn't it? I mentioned my mate Bruce with the Thriller video a moment ago. First foreign holiday we took together. We were 17 years old, 1982. We went to Spain together. And we were laying on the beach, minding our own business, just watching the world go by. And there were 3 English girls sat quite close to us. And, we're all sunbathing, not talking to each other, just watching the world go by. So one of the 3 girls got up, went away and came back with sandwiches and stuff like that. And one of the girls, who hadn't gone to fetch food, sat there and basically ate the lot. Another girl then went away and came back with some more food, and once again, the same person ate the lot. And my mate Bruce said, I bet her nickname's Food. Stuck with me to this day. And there's also my son's mate Chris goes to AFC Wimbledon to watch the football, and there's a guy there goes in at about 30 stone, big old lad. Nickname? Salad. Of course, Salad. Mostly diggers. That's our friend Garvin. Censor. I only work when someone walks past. Well played. Well played indeed. Morning Footy Williams, better late than never, says Dan Cullen. Andy Darvell, are you in the WhatsApp group? I don't think Andy is. Andy, if you'd like to be in the... you've sent through a request, have you? Haven't checked that for a day or two, and it's a manual system, unfortunately. I'll go and have a look and I'll get you in. My nickname is actually tattooed in my lip as Footy. Can't stand football, might be my name. I can't stand football. I get the impression you can't stand football. Tattooed in your lip. Ow. Bet that hurt. You just can't, you may have just suggested. I mean, I don't want photographs or anything like that, but that may be a question for question of the day for tomorrow. Have you got any tattoos? If so, what are they? You got any? Save it for tomorrow. I've got two. I've got one up here and one slightly embarrassing in the bottom of my back. I'll bore you with it sometime. Tattoos. Think about tattoos for tomorrow. Mick Saunders says, morning, one and all. Bit late. The hound slipped his leash and got a bit too amorous with a Labradoodoo. Haven't we all done that at some point? Question of the day. Also been called Dan Crazy Monkey. Love climbing high trees. An object, no ropes. Chainsaw in one hand. Good luck to you on that. Crazy Monkey. Crazy Monkey. Sounds like the name you'd give to a Native American child. Here comes Crazy Monkey with his best friend, Sitting Bull. Right, people, go and think about tattoos for a little while. Go and think about Red Adair and stuff like that. I'm going to be back here again tomorrow. As I say, we will be bringing you details of the video that I filmed yesterday with Jed Simmons over at Mace. Yes, I got to hang out with a managing director of Mace yesterday because, you know, I'm quite a big deal around these parts. Question of the day, Mick Saunders, no nickname, but plenty. Yeah. Listen, if that were a nickname, I would have adopted it by now. Let's have a look. Pictures of it. Got my legs done, arms and head. I've never fancied a head tattoo at all. Have a great day, guys. Stay safe, says Andy Darville. Yeah, go and do that. Go and have a great day. As I say, we'll be back tomorrow with more of this, but we'll do what I'll probably do. The video that I shot with the guy from Mace is about 15 minutes long, way too long for this show. So I think what I'll do, I'll pick the bones out of it and play it for you tomorrow, or play you some highlights, and then if you want to go and see the whole thing, you'll be able to see that over on the YouTubes. Until then, everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Think about your tattoos for tomorrow, and I'm going to write that down so I don't forget it. Have you got any tattoos? What's the worst tattoo you've ever seen? What's the best tattoo you've ever seen? My youngest daughter has an entire back piece, literally shoulder to shoulder down to basically her arse. Am I happy with my daughter having a tattoo of that size? Probably not. Is it a work of art? Yeah, damn tootin' it is. Tell you about it tomorrow. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. I have enjoyed your company, as I always do. Till I see you again, all the very best. Keep safe out in that weather. See you later.